So you have been through a lot, but you would not change anything. Am I correct?
Not a thing. Absolutely not. I would do it again. I would do it all again.
But even when you got your breast cancer diagnosis, you must have been concerned that you wouldn't recover, that you wouldn't go in remission, and that you would die. I mean, that's the natural reaction when you hear cancer, right?
Not me. No way. I was so overworked and completely stressed out. I thought, thank goodness it's not my mother. Thank goodness it's not my sister. Thank goodness it's me. I didn't have kids. I was a newlywed. I'd seen
You were always a newlywed, aren't you?
Always.
What a funny person that you are. And I met you, I guess, I on Off the Record years ago.
Yes.
And this was well before you had breast cancer, well before you had kidney failure, well before you had a hole in your heart that had to be fixed. The person that I met back then in 1998, maybe, I don't remember what it was, but somewhere around there. How is that person different than the person today? Because, I mean, we never had a conversation in depth like we're having right now. So was that person there in 1998?
I think so. I think that a lot of, I was very intense. I was working very, very hard. We did about, I'm going to guess, around 275 to 300 shows a year for almost 12 to 13 years before I was diagnosed with breast cancer. Breast cancer was the first vacation I'd ever had from my job, ever. And I was so relieved that it made me really examine what my work was actually doing to me. But I think that everybody does definitely have anxiety. And I think that my anxiety manifested in these coping techniques that I developed, which were, almost, unusual optimism. And I use it as a coping technique always, no matter what is happening. It's like that cartoon we like where the room is on fire and the person in the middle is still drinking coffee saying, I'm fine, or saying everything's fine. I don't know. I think that I'm very lucky that I wound up getting through that period of intense work history pretty unscathed in the big picture.
And, one of the things that you've talked about in things that I've read and things that I've seen from you is the lack of mental health services available to people who had a diagnosis like yours. What would you have said? What would you say to someone, given what you've learned, who's suffering from a mental illness, which I've always thought is a physical illness of the brain? We just call it mental illness for some reason.
Yes. Well, of course, I'm not an expert.
Of course.
But I do know for sure that sometimes it's really not helpful for a person to kind of try and infuse your positivity on a person who is going through something emotional, particularly if it's a mental health issue. It's not helpful always. It's not always helpful to be that little ray of sunshine. Sometimes that's not what a person needs, honestly. And you got to know what someone needs.
What you said about, being that ray of sunshine, I could see Chris Denny, who's going to be our next guest, and I could see him nodding his head. It's one of the most intuitive things that I've ever heard from someone who hasn't been in the position that I was in. You've been in lots of other difficult positions, but not specifically severe depression. But what you said is like, that is gold. And that should be in the caregiver's Bible, which is, being that ray of sunshine sometimes is pretty damn annoying. And it's not what people need, because if you could just will yourself out based on your surroundings, then you would.
Of course.
So I love that answer. Oh my gosh.
But I also think that it's important to acknowledge that people who are not diagnosed doesn't mean that they do not have something that's going on. And I think that a lot of people do not seek professional care young enough in their life, and they might not even know that there is, that they can find out more about what's going on with themselves. And
You
I
know,
think it needs to be normalized.
Chris Denny, how are you, man? You are. I always start an intro that way, which is kind of weird because it's not like I got to tell you who you are. You're a senior vice president, Lumino Health. That's Sun Life, and Lumino came to our attention because one of the things that I do all the time is talk about how there's a disconnect between people with mental illness and the system that's out there. Forget about the fact that the system, is under servicing people, that there's not enough to go around. It's just that I kind of think that people need to have somebody hold their hand. At the toughest time in their life, you can't be on your own. I would imagine you agree with that.
Oh, absolutely. There's a lot of great work done to destigmatize, but still there's a lot of inertia to act, a lot of hurdles for them to do something about their mental health. Just to go luminohealth.ca, it's actually really easy to use. You just put in your location and what you're looking for, and what you'll see pop up is all the health providers around you. So if you're looking for a psychologist, you'll see all the psychologists around you. A lot of credible information on ratings. We've got 14 million ratings on cost, other information. If you're looking for someone who's open on the weekend or speaks a certain language or provides virtual care, it's all there. And it's just very easy for you to find the one that matches your needs. So it's, as I say, very easy to use, and within minutes you can have someone that to connect with.
So speaking to that person that I was describing in general, who is just feeling like the world has, like there's a foot on his or her head and can't move, even though they want to get help, they just don't know where to start. They don't have the energy to do basically anything for themselves. So the one thing they should do is go to Lumino Health, was it .ca?
Yeah, and actually what's there, Michael, even ahead of looking for a psychologist, there's actually a ton of content there that we work with partners like CAMH and Anxiety Canada. There's a lot of actually free community-based resources that we just bring together. And what we created is what we call the stress and anxiety guide, where it helps you to kind of map out for wherever you are in the journey. If you just want to learn a little bit more, if you want to understand signs and symptoms, if you want to see what kind of treatment plans, if you're dealing with someone who has mental health, it's not you. There are actually resources that are specifically about that. So it helps you to kind of curate and find those resources that are relevant to you, learn a bit more so you have a bit of confidence to act. And then depending on where you want to go with that, we'll give you different resources to connect in with.
How come you're nodding your head when Bif said, sometimes being sort of that, that positive, come on, go get them. You were nodding your head like that when she said, maybe that's not the most useful thing. What resonated with you?
Well, I think, I'm a human being like everybody else. I've had my challenges over time. And to your point, sometimes you're withdrawing from, that kind of energy. And you just need, I really like the way that Bif talked about it. You just need somebody there with you and just start the conversation. I think that's, for me, the biggest thing is taking a first step. It doesn't even matter how small it is, just taking a first step and having somebody with you to do that is like an added plus.
Yeah, I obviously I agree. A long time ago, we started using a phrase called proud of the shower. And that is when you're at the bottom, you can't just wait to celebrate when you get back to a decent position, because you probably won't get there unless you celebrate little tiny steps that to other people wouldn't mean anything. But, if you haven't taken a shower, if you haven't got out of bed in a couple of days and you do it, you gotta take pride in that. And then the next step becomes a little bit easier if you've celebrated, your first step. You mentioned your own situation. What have you battled in the past?
So I would have had stretches where really it's sort of intense work stress, if you will, and you think you're dealing with it well mentally, but physically it can catch up to you. And it caused some issues for me, thyroid issues that just sort of jumped up. And it's this idea, it's like you're holding this weight and you hold it long enough, something breaks, and you don't think about it every day. And that's why I worry, actually. One of the things that we we saw in the survey that we just did with Canadians is that like 60% of them have had their mental health deteriorate since COVID, but only like 1 in 5 is do anything about it. And I think it's that same inertia to sort of, I can hold it another day, I can hold it another day, versus, you know, taking some actions that help you to relieve that pressure, because it builds up over time and then bad things can happen.
I'm riveted listening to everything. And of course, I'm going to go myself and go explore Lumino Health when we're off of this call, because it's so fascinating. And I think it's providing such an enormous, great service for all of us. But yes, I agree. During the pandemic specifically, I noticed just in my friends who are expressing to me, they are feeling their own mental health deteriorate, even from my terribly introverted friends. And I think that people don't realize how those little interactions, just in your daily commute, actually really affect your well-being and your mental well-being. The seeing the same bus driver every day. You don't even have to have a conversation with that person. But it's just those things are not there anymore, or haven't been there, or just those little interactions that we have with other people. Even the regular office, even if you hate your office and complained about your office, it doesn't matter. Having that lack of contact has really, I think, surprised a lot of people. And they realize how isolated they are now feeling, and it's going to start to manifest in unusual ways for them if they don't kind of acknowledge it and maybe seek ways to make themselves feel better. But Lumino Health would be a good way.
We see people kind of almost on two extremes. To your point, the isolation, it is something that's sort of wearing away at people. And then you have families with young kids, and they've got there's people in their face all the time, and they got no break, and they feel like they're failing at all aspects of their life. So I really worry that the longer this goes on, this is a growing crisis. We would have thought of it as a crisis before COVID, to be honest. You see more mental health issues in society, and I think this is a ticking time bomb. So I think it's important that people kind of get out ahead of it and don't wait till things break. Start little actions that get you on the right path.
We're going to find out what life is like afterwards. And I'm just afraid that we're going to see such an increase we've already seen a huge increase in suicides, right? I was reading from somebody in Saskatchewan. I don't remember what his or her position was, but they were saying how, the number of suicide attempts, calls that they have gone to, so I guess it was paramedics, have like increased hugely during this. So I'm just worried about what the world is going to look like afterwards and what the damage is going to be. Kind of like a tornado blows through, and while the tornado's going through, all you can think of is, God, I hope I survive this. But then when it leaves, you look around and you go, it's devastation.
It's like post-traumatic stress disorder, but on a global scale, because everybody's feeling a lot of the same emotions, and it's building.
So this was great. Thank you so much to both of you. Lovely sharing this to today's conversation, which makes it, I think, very usable for people. And I just love chatting with you both.
And thank you for that.
Okay. And Chris, thank you so much for coming and sharing something that could be life-changing for people. And you just never know what little thing might turn somebody's life around. And one thing's for sure, when you're lying in bed and you think your life is over, that there's nothing beyond this, that no one can help you, and you feel totally lost, just one little step can be the biggest thing that you ever do. And maybe luminohealth.ca is that step.
We hope so.
Thanks, Ben.
Thank you.
Yeah.